Welcome to the Filmmaker Mixer podcast, the podcast by filmmakers for filmmakers. My name is Andrew, and I'm joined alongside my co-host Jeff, as always. Jeff and I are writers and directors and passionate about the art of storytelling. Filmmaker Mixer is a creative hub where aspiring and established filmmakers come together to share experiences, insights, strategies, and inspiration.
This episode is sponsored by Gemini Crown Tech, software for all of your production needs. Stay tuned for more information later in the show. Hello, everybody. This is the Filmmaker Mixer podcast, and today we are joined by actor and director Paul James, whose really terrific short film, What Freedom, explores the intersection of incarceration, foster care, and identity. So today we're going to talk about who we are and what do we stand for. Big topic today. So, Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Well, just for context, for those who haven't seen the film, because I know you're out on the festival circuit now, just give us a quick description as to what the film's about.
Yeah, it's about an incarcerated teen, a black teen in the juvenile detention system, and he yearns for freedom. He doesn't have a lot of good options, and during the course of our short, he escapes the juvenile detention and has to make a choice to decide what will put him on the path towards quote unquote true freedom, if it actually exists in today's society.
Well, I'm curious because as I was looking you up on IMDb, you've done a lot of acting, and I'm curious how being an actor informed you now that you're in the director's chair.
Yeah, I mean, I've been acting my whole life. Like I started kind of doing it seriously around 15. So,
Oh, wow.
about to turn 44. So it's like, it's a lifetime of studying that. I think for this project, honestly, I did not focus on it too much, aside from really wanting to nail down casting.
Right.
They have that whole adage of it's all about the casting is the performance, right? And so I didn't want to have to, because it was my first time directing, I had so many other things to think about. I didn't want to have to think about acting that much.
Directors don't want to think, right?
Well, I was thinking about, all the stuff that I haven't studied for 30 years.
No,
right?
I get it.
Camera angles, and are we going to get this, you know what I mean, in my shot list, and like, what are we getting? So I had some really good conversations with the actors before we started, and I kind of left them to their own devices for the most
Interesting.
part. There was a couple times where I gave some adjustments. I studied with a great acting coach from my first film. So like, I think I'm pretty good at giving an adjustment where I'm not telling you what to do, but letting you explore how a note will make you feel. But besides that, yeah, I was focusing on a lot of technical things.
And what were those technical things that maybe came easy to you and ones that maybe didn't come so easy to you during the process?
Yeah, it was I worked with a great DP, Pascal Williams, who's a couple years out of AFI, and when we were coming up with the shot list, she had sent some David Fincher films to me to put me on the radar of what he does, how he tells a story, and like through camera angles. And I was really impressed, obviously, as you would be with Fincher, but also realizing that there's a reason he does a lot of takes to perfect these movements. And I knew we weren't going to have a lot of time. So it literally led me to the opposite, where I wanted to explore what happens if the camera doesn't move when he is in prison and incarcerated. And so the only time the camera moves, aside from his POV, is when he escapes. So because of that, we had to have lots of setups, which is, I thought it would be easier with no camera movement, and it turns out I don't think it was. So for me, a lot of it was just like, are we going to have time for this? If we're not going to have time for this, how can we still get this story? How can we still tell all the beats that we need to? So I think a lot of that first day was really focused on that. And also just all the other things, checking in with all the departments and empowering them to be creative as well.
And how did this project come to you? How did you get involved?
Yeah, one of the producers, Jessica Kelly, who's also a fantastic casting director. I went to college with her. We studied acting at Syracuse a long time ago with our other producer friend, Finley Davidson, who's also a casting director. So the three of us, so Jess's like best friend growing up, Megan Best, wrote it. So it's all kind of like this family affair. I've known Megan since college when she visited freshman year, right? So we've got this shorthand, the four of us. And I remember senior year of college, Jess directed a show, Top Girls by Carol Churchill, and me and Finley were her assistant directors. And Jess told me then, and Jess had been casting all throughout her life, and she had told me then, she was like, "You should be a director."
Oh,
And
interesting.
last year, she brought me this script. She sat me down and she was like, "It's time." And she brought me the script, and I had a meeting with her and Megan, and that's how we got started.
So she's been planning this the whole time. She planted the seed of the director and then she brought you a script.
She's such a, she cast in such a deep, earthy, organic way where she really dreams things up. She's such a dreamer and she's very spiritual. And so she has these feelings, and that feeling she had, 20 some years ago. And then it was finally time for us to get started.
So what was the process like? I'm curious, how long you had for pre-production, the production, the post-production, just what memories stick out during this process?
Um, well, it was, you know, one of the cool things I got to do. I mean, she brought it to me and we had a first meeting, and it's funny because I didn't really know what I was doing. I mean, I hadn't, really thought of directing too much, except I knew I wanted to hire three of the people that I ended up hiring, which was awesome. So I just watched movies. I just watched, three movies a day and started taking notes, and then would come up with ideas, and then would once I came up with the static camera thing, I'm like, well, who does that? What directors play around with static cameras? And so we were watching, I was watching, some of the greats that play with that, and figuring out like what works, um, looking at some movies and being and realizing, oh, that's a great idea, but that's not right for this film. And trying to come up with all the ways that you can tell a story. I mean, as an actor, sort of one way that you can tell a story, but to be able to tell the story through color and music and camera angles and costumes, and have all those props, like production design. There was all these ways for me that my creativity got to bloom in a way that it hasn't before. And then one of the things I really wanted to do, I mean, I've worked on enough productions where you don't feel creatively fulfilled. So I told everyone, come with your best ideas. We're doing a short. There's no money to be made. So like, let's just be as creative as possible. Like, what are the ideas? How can we do this? So that to me was really exciting. And the other part I really loved, because I am such a music fan, and Great Dane, who did the scoring, was one of my old friends who I wanted to get involved years ago. I wanted him on me with some movies. Is when we were doing the sound in the studio, not like just the mixing, and being able to make those choices and think about things I've never thought about, like how loud do I want that sweater to sound like, like how loud do the alarms, and I worked with a really a good artist named Troy, and we were just able to fiddle for 2 days, and that was like kind of the most fun that I had on it.
So now that you've gotten your first project as a director under your belt, anything you would definitely do again and anything you would definitely not do again on your next film?
Gosh, what would I not do again? I mean, no, I don't think there's anything that I wouldn't do again. I mean, there's filmmaking such an interesting thing. I've been on set, but you can't plan for stuff. Like some things you just can't plan for. Um, you just have to react on the fly. I mean, I was listening to a lot of the Deacons podcast, listening to all the different kinds of artists talk about what they do. And one of the things that, you hear everyone say is there's going to be mistakes, and it's how you bounce back and solve those mistakes. And so some of my favorite parts of the short are when things didn't go according to plan and we had to figure out how to fix it. And that to me has like been super rewarding. Um, Maybe don't do again. Maybe like not getting in water at night. Like when, even though it was the summer, it was freezing. I thought our lead actor Artie was going to get hypothermia. He was such a trooper. And things that I would do again, I mean, just surround myself with people smarter than I, like I did this time, that to be able to be collaborative. And my VFX guy I've known since high school, and we went to college together, and then we worked at PF Chang's together. Pascal, I've known for a while and I wanted to work with her. The guy who did the poster, Mark, who I love, I wanted to work with for a few years. Like that to me has been cool. And I can't wait to do the next film and work with more talented people that I know.
You kind of mentioned it just in that answer, but I'm curious if you can expand on maybe any of those happy accidents that came about while you were filming. We interviewed a duo filmmaking team a while back, and they were doing a movie in a desert, and one day they woke up and it was snowing outside, and they're like, I don't know how we're going to justify this, but it ended up making the story even better, they said. So, like you said, maybe you have to roll with the punches, but I'm curious if there were any examples of kind of those happy accidents happening.
Yeah, some I'm definitely going to keep to myself. My sister went to school for television, radio, and film. She went to Howard, and she's a novelist now. But I had her come and be our DIT, which was really cool. And one day we got home, and she was like, "Yeah, you didn't get one of the shots." And I was like, "Wait, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean?" And she's like, "Yeah, you didn't get the shot." And I was like, "Wait, why didn't you tell me that on the day? Like, that's what we're for." And so I spent an hour figuring out how we were going to edit, and it ends up working out like better than I could have imagined. And also, I'll be specific about something else. We were able to shoot at a real juvenile detention center, which was like sort of imperative to find that to give it that realism. I also loved the scale of the buildings that we were filming in. We found a great courtroom in the same complex, but the courtroom is run by a different agency, and we weren't able to use it at the last minute. So our wonderful production designer created that courtroom out of like a dingy room at like I don't even know what it was used for. It smelled like mold. And she was able to create that. And it's funny. I was livid because the other courtroom had I mean, it was perfect. And that scene is kind of one of my favorite scenes. I just love the way that she was able to create it and she got the color story that I wanted. And I really like that scene. So it's one of those things where it's like happy accidents.
Interesting. Well, you said you started acting when you were 15?
I
So,
mean, like, yeah, I started doing it. I realized that's what I was gonna do in life. So I was doing it in high school, but I started, doing it at a local college and I did like a half day schedule, I think, my senior year and was just pretty serious about it.
so what was the moment you decided this isn't just a hobby, this is something I have to do for a living? And then how did you turn it into a career?
I just think when you're in high school and middle school, you're trying to find the things that you do well. And it was once I started performing, I realized like this is something that I do really well. My father wanted to be a painter. I think my mom wanted to be an actress, and neither of them ended up doing those careers. So they really supported me and my sister to be artistic. We always went to plays and galleries and all kinds of dancing. And so we just became artists. That's like who we are. That's who I am to my core. So my mom was a big proponent of there's people that make a living as an actor. Why not you? And I have a couple other friends. There's a actor named Utkarsh Bukadar who's on the show Ghosts that I just did a guest star on. But my mom taught at his school,
Oh,
and when
wow.
I ran into him, he was like, "Your mom was very instrumental to telling me that I could do it." I got another friend that was a journalist for a while, a really good friend of mine, and he didn't think he should go into broadcast journalism. And she sat him down and she was like, "You can do this." So I was sort of lucky to have support. And then, yeah, just sort of tunnel vision and maybe being a little delusional and thinking you could make a career at it. And then like 20 years later, you don't realize how you have, but it's worked out so far.
Being naive early in this business is probably a good thing.
It's the best thing in the world.
So, what has the audience response been like so far? I know you said Jeff said you're on the festival run. I'm curious either from, you know, family members that you've shown or audience members at festivals. Are there any reactions that really stuck with you?
We're having our premiere this weekend, so we
Oh, okay.
haven't. I haven't seen it with a group of people yet,
And
and
that's
I don't know.
that's Dallas. Is that the
Yeah, we're going to Dallas.
right?
Yeah, film festival. I don't, I've showed it to friends. I mean, they all love it, but they're my friends, so like, you can't trust any of them. You know, um, I think I had one friend that didn't like it, so I was like, all right, that's cool. Uh, you
Really?
know,
That's it? What didn't they like?
uh, he just didn't get it. He just didn't get it.
Interesting.
And he comes from the commercial world a little bit more. And so I don't think he understood some of the more artistic things that we were doing.
That's
But it's
interesting.
like it's, I mean, that's the great part about art. Like you're not making it so that everybody likes it, right? If
Right,
everybody
right.
probably not doing its job. Um, yeah, it's been cool. I mean, it's been cool. It's given me a lot. I think I think in my heart of hearts, like, there's a bit of imposter syndrome. I've studied acting for so long, even though every time I go on set, I'm still learning something new. But it's hard sometimes to believe I've done one short film that I could like be a director. But I think in my heart of hearts, I think I'll be a better director than um, I am an actor just because of the way my brain works, which is something that I think Jess understood when she told me I should be a director. So I'm excited that this is the beginning of the journey and excited to work on such a great project. Megan wrote such a great script, and I got to work with some great actors. That's really cool.
Are you interested in directing something that you would also act in?
Probably not. I don't want to
Really?
say never. I
Yeah.
don't want to say never. I don't think I possess. I think after 20 years of looking in the mirror and focusing on yourself, I think I have healthy fear of too much more ego.
That makes
And
sense. Yeah.
think being a director already, it can be, that can be a way to satisfy a lot of ego, which I'm trying to fight. And I think if I was going to direct myself, there's just so much I would miss, you
Right.
know? If I had a story, I was telling some kids, I was talking to some Columbia MFA graduates, and I'm like, if you have a story that you've written, find a director. You can be in it. You wrote it. Find a director to direct, or if you want to direct it, cast someone as yourself. Like there's still so much to be learned and gained from it, and I just respect. Right now, I have respect directing too much to think that I could do both jobs. So maybe that won't always be the case, but
Well, if you're directing and acting, you would miss out on that collaboration because, if you're working with a lead actor that brings something to the table you don't expect, that's always a surprise, and it's a nice surprise.
right. And I gotta be honest, it can't be too much fun to be the other actor in the scene if you're acting with the actor who's the director. Like, I don't think that would be a lot of fun, even if it was, I can't imagine that would be super fulfilling. There's a chance I might do like if I might do like a small role, but probably never lead role.
Right, right. Well, as a director, what kinds of stories are you drawn to? Are there um, other ideas or other genres you want to do? I know this is a drama. Are you interested in horror, thriller, comedy? What kinds of things do you want to do?
Yeah, I I think the thing I really sort of gravitate to is science fiction in a way because I like the allegory of science fiction. I'm into there's lots of symbolism in the film and that, how to bring out that symbolism is really exciting to me, and you can do that in science fiction a lot. I don't know that I don't enjoy seeing horror movies at all. Like, now they're sort of ubiquitous and I'm going to see Sinners tomorrow, but like, I feel like I'm going to die. I'm in them. And I've been in them, and it's like that's not fun either. Like being dragged around like covered in blood when it's like 30 degrees or like,
You
but
could
there's
do
a
it. You could do a psychological horror. I could see you doing that.
yeah, right.
Something a real elevated horror.
Maybe like there's a lot of cool stuff I mean, the fact that I saw The Substance in the theater is was such a victory for me to be able to sit through that movie because usually I can't do it. But I'm always I really like drama. I always do. I like drama. I think every good drama should have a bit of comedy in it, a spoonful of sugar. Um, but there's great comedies out there too. I mean, just any sort of script that grabs you. I have a couple ideas. There's some satires I'm mulling about in my head that I'd like to sort of do, but that's a tough genre. So I probably have to study that for a little bit.
Well, are you going to be in Dallas for the screening?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
perfect.
Our
So
whole team, most of our whole team is. We're super excited.
nice, nice. And how did you decide? Because Andrew and I get this question all the time, and I know it's tricky because you're trying to figure out the festival circuit and what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. What was your plan, or did you have a plan when you went out looking at festivals? Did you handpick specific ones? You were like, this was right for that kind of movie, or we get that question a lot, and it's
Yeah.
tricky.
Well, it's interesting. This. I think for this project really is a collaboration in that I didn't write it and my friend Jess brought it to me, and we hired some great producers, Hungry Bull, Joe and Tony, and they have another movie at Dallas. So I think they were probably the impetus to be like, this is a really good festival that we should go after. I think I sort of stepped back when we were talking about festivals. It just sort of, when I was directing it, I know it's important, but it wasn't necessarily my goal.
Right.
And figured that if it was other people's goal, then they could take care of that. I just sort of wanted to make the best thing possible. I definitely have my eye on some festivals that have strong African-American presence that we're going to submit to. And I think that's important for what this film is. I want the African-American audience to see this film. But we're super happy and honored to be at Dallas. I've never actually been to Dallas, so that's going to be it's going to be a fun trip, and I'm excited to see some of the other films that are there.
That's cool. Well, before we wrap up, tell the audience how they can follow your career, follow your film and your future films. How do they track you down and keep an eye on what you're up to?
Oh man, I have no idea. I got an easy name to remember. I'll be around doing something. I'll be doing another film one day. So.
Awesome. Well, keep in touch. And, as this film gets out there and gets to an audience and you start to have more success with your directing career, circle back. We'll chat again.
Oh, I'd love to. This has been great. Thank you guys for talking to me. I appreciate it.
All right, man. You have a great time and break a leg at the film festival. I hope you have a great premiere.
Yeah, me too. And I hope you guys have a good Yellowstone podcast after this.
Yeah, it should be fun. It should be fun. Will you take care, man?
All right, take it easy.
Thank you so much.
This episode is sponsored by Gemini Crown Tech, owned and operated by Stephanie Moore and Stephanie Harrison. We at Gemini Crown Tech have covered all your production management needs with our proprietary software. Please visit our website at www.geminicrowntech.com and use the code FMP for Filmmaker Mixer podcast listeners, so we know how you heard about us.
Thank you for listening to the Filmmaker Mixer podcast, a podcast created and hosted by filmmakers Jeff Stolen and Andrew Lamping and produced by Melody Lopez.
Our theme song was composed by Stephen D. Bennett.
Make sure to follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us on, and stay tuned for future episodes.